Hey reader, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing something a little bit different today, which is we're showing you guys the Zurn Central website, which is my website. It's not a great website, but then again, I'm not a web designer, so here we are. And over the years, because I've been involved in both the tabletop roleplay gaming sphere of things as well as the tabletop wargaming side of things, I have created campaigns for various games. And today we're going to jump into the first campaign that I've created for your use for StarCraft. Now, it's worth noting the Zern Central website is completely free. Everything that is hosted here will always be free. I will intentionally, I am not choosing to commercialize any of it. So you can click right here on the image for the Liberation of Kairos, which is our first campaign that we're releasing, and it will pull up a PDF, and you can download that and just start playing with your friends. As soon as your models come, I guess, heck, you could even start playing with some of the proxies, the little standees and stuff like that that we've all been making for testing the game as well, if you want to. But the hope is that the moment that you get your minis together and you start gluing them together, you will be able to start playing adventures within the Kaprulu sector. And so today's video is going to be the start of our playlist looking at the missions and the content tied to this, where we're just going to be going over just the basic story arc of what's going on in this campaign, relatively simplistic, as well as some of the unique features that are present as part of this campaign, with, of course, a quick reminder that this is not an official Archon publication. This is not, none of this is official. It's just one gamer's take on what I think is a very interesting story for you to be able to use. You will notice that it is a 5-part campaign complete with 6 missions. So there will be a choice mission at one point during the campaign. That will also include, just a quick playthrough guide to kind of walk you through some of the basics of what's going on and what it is that you're going to need, as well as some additional aids, gaming aids that you can print off to kind of help you out as you go through everything. More on that a little bit later. It is designed to work from 800 to 1200 points, which means if you just buy the starter box and you're totally cool with just the stuff that comes in the starter box, you can actually play this campaign. You don't technically need to buy any of the additional stuff. You could just have the Founders Edition starter box, Terran versus Zerg, and you can completely play this one. Admittedly, you might need to use some stand-ins or cardboard cutouts for one of the choice missions because it does involve the Protoss, but you can technically play with this just straight out of the box. Buying additional kits will give you more options and more versatility, but you can technically do it just that way. Okay, so to start off with, all of our campaigns always begin with the story, which is basically a one-page, always one-page, quick blow-by-blow of how the story flows, how it works. So that way you can kind of get the feel of where the arcs are going between the different missions. It helps to keep you from getting lost among the trees as you're walking through the forest. And so in this case, the story centers around Argos Company. This is a private contract army that can be contracted out to Terran forces and planets across the Kaprulu sector. We do not set a specific era, so this could be Confederacy era, Dominion era, pre-Confederacy era. If they wanted to serve, say, the Imogen Protectorate or the Kalmorian Combine or something else like that. It could be post-Dominion under Valerian Minsk. You can really set it anywhere you want. We don't really have a set deadline. You may need to kind of like tweak with some of the thinking behind it though, based on era, because obviously the Confederacy is the first time that we have cataloged the arrival of the Zerg. It's when people are first coming across it and discovering it. Hence the whole conversation about whether something is a dog. That's not a dog, Lester. That's a Zergling, right? Sort of things going on. But if you're able to make it work in your own head, canon-wise, maybe this particular engagement is not widely publicized. Maybe it's covered up by whatever the government is, so nobody knows about what happened on the planet of Kairos. You have options, okay, for how you deal with this. And in this case, the Argos Company is contacted by Dr. Hypatia Thompson of the Thales Foundation. They are a research and health humanitarian organization that operate on a very lush, very temperate climated planet. And there's a Zerg colony under a Hive Queen, which could be loyal to Kerrigan, could be independent, could be tied to a Cerberate under the Overmind, whatever you want. They're trying to take it over, and her crew are looking for your help in escaping the planet, right? Nice and simple. So in mission 1, you're going to land. You're going to do a nice little bit of fighting, a little bit of skirmishing against, mostly just to teach you the rules of the game. And then in mission 2 comes the fun part. We journey over to Hope's Rest, where you'll be able to help establish a perimeter, and you're basically the defender protecting the 3 transports, the 3 objectives, from the oncoming Zerg. Okay. And then comes the choice mission. High Command tells you that they've got new information. Local governors want to extend the contract and actually reclaim the whole planet and not just rescue a bunch of doctors and their patients and stuff. And so you get a choice mission. You can either help a stranded unit of Protoss that got knocked down out of orbit on their way to investigate this phenomenon. And so you have a chance to be able to kind of rescue them, a very unique way of playing an objective based game with the stranded ship. And or alternatively, you discover that there is a Terran factory located elsewhere on the planet, and if you get there quickly, you might even be able to pump out some heavier machinery to help you in your fight against the Zerg. And so you get a choice. You can either go to assist the Protoss and get benefits for doing that, or you can help reclaim some additional Terran heavy machinery and get bonuses for future missions off of that. And then once your forces are marshaled, you begin the attack against the primary Zerg hive cluster. So now the Zerg are on the defense. They get to protect their three objectives, and the Terran are on the offense, trying to crack through and destroy all of those. Kind of the almost exact opposite of Mission 2 in Mission 5. And then finally, with Mission 6, you discover that the Queen herself wasn't there. So you got to scour the streets looking for the Queen, and it's an all-out brawl, just seeing if you can remove the brood mother who is in charge of this particular brood, Razoth. As we call her. And that is how it ends, right? You know, how it chooses to go will be all up to you. And we always include like a slogan for whatever forces are being present here. So in this case, Argos Company's slogan is Argos surges forth, and Razoth's brood goes by the moniker that Razoth's brood bows to none. Okay? And then from there, what the download is going to give you is it's going to give you a quick walkthrough. So we'll begin with just a very quick summary of what's going to happen. And then there's a little read aloud section to make you kind of feel like you're in StarCraft. So different characters end up talking with each other. If you want to get together friends and have them read it all aloud together, it's kind of fun. Typically about one page. It's not particularly long. And then you'll have your setup. And we're going to be going in depth into each of the missions in a separate video. So don't worry about those. But just suffice it to say, we'll tell you what size board to use. We'll also tell you what the name of the map and what the map ID is on the portal that's set up by Archon Studios. So that if you're playing on Tabletop Simulator, you can just load the map ID and you'll have your map and you're all set to go. Then you just deploy your units, right? And then it'll tell you if it has a specific setup for whatever the objective markers are and the deployment zones are. It will tell you what that is, and then we mark everything off as well on the map. And sometimes there will be additional things that get added to the map, which will be part of secondary scoring objectives. In this case, the circle's marked in blue. Okay, we'll then tell you what forces are allowed. We'll tell you what your mineral maximum is, and of course the associated amount of Vespene gas. We'll tell you what your starting supply will be for round one, so that way you know. And then we give kind of an example below of what it could look like, and what all is present. Now you'll notice a unit of 2 fire bats being one of the things present here. And the reason for that is we also provide you with some unique content tied to this. So you get faction cards for whatever the main factions are that are present in it. And every mission will provide you with typically at least one new profile that's just kind of a holdover until the official profiles are released. So in this case, here's our take on what the fire bat is. And how I would recommend running it, although obviously I trust the guys at Archon. They've been testing this for a while, and we're supposed to be getting fire bats by the end of 2026. So it should be fun. We then tell you what the primary objectives and the secondary objectives are. Primary objectives tie to victory points, which is how you win the match. Secondary objectives always tie in campaign points, which is where we're going to jump into next. At the end of the game, you're going to compare your victory points. That determines who the winner is and who the loser is. The winner gains 2 campaign points automatically. Loser gains 1. And then your secondary objectives determine additional campaign points you can win. And that allows you to purchase upgrades for your units. And so as we jump down here to the appendices, there will always be an appendix here at the very end of the game. The first thing that we typically do is we'll kind of give you some sample heroes that you can use. And so we provide you with like a quick little rundown on, in this case, Major Lana Hale, who's one of the major officers of Argos Company. It tells you a little bit about like what brought her here and why she's the way she is, what her personality's like, as well as a couple of catchphrases that she says, because, you know, when you click on a unit in StarCraft, they like to say something. If you're one of those people who likes to simulate that, you can, when you select your character, you can whip out one of the current phrases and use that. Again, just helps you feel a little more like StarCraft. Strictly not necessary, but there it is. And then she's got her stat line, right? And you have this card, and she counts as a hero with related keywords as well, obviously. You go through all of the other characters. I'll be adding additional pictures once I end up getting, models. Kind of important. We're getting a bunch of these. We also have some, of course, for the Zerg. So, you have a bunch of different Zerg heroes that will be present. Take a look at just like one of them. We have like an old Scar veteran Hydralisk hero available for you. They'll typically have, of course, similar things to what you'd expect to see on a Hydralisk, but they'll also typically have additional bonuses like this Hunter's Call passive ability that they can use in order to kind of assist them in helping the rest of your troops as well. So kind of a reason to take them over and against just using stuff, but obviously you can use Raynor, Kerrigan, etc. if you really want to. But in Appendix 2, this is where one of the more interesting things happens. We have the campaign points section where you can purchase 3 different things with your campaign points that you win from, either winning or losing the scenario, but also for completing secondary objectives. And so the first thing you can get, and by far the most expensive, but also the most utility minded, are unit upgrades. And these are permanent upgrades that you can attach to units so that they'll carry over from one match to the next. So they can range from things like the alert unit upgrade, which can be taken by anybody of any faction. Where models in this unit can reroll failed evade rolls. Sometimes they will be specific to a specific group of people. So the Argos Surge's fourth ability, you have to be part of Argos Company in order to take it. So if you were running this in a future campaign and you're running a different campaign with your own models and stuff like that, technically speaking, Argos Surge's fourth would not be an available upgrade even if you were a Terran unit. Others like Cover Fire are available to Terran units generally, so these will carry over from one campaign to the next. There are some that are shared between things like Terran and Protoss, or Protoss. I haven't found too many where Protoss and Zerg overlap, but we'll see. If you have examples or ideas for that, please let us know down in the comments below. But then, of course, there's also quite a few that are going to be unique to one or the other race, very similar things sometimes, just more flavorful, in certain cases. But then you also have some that are just available, like Hold the Line, to, again, any race. Doesn't matter what those are. And so those you purchase for 3 campaign points each. So, it is a little bit expensive, but hey, if you want an additional +1 to hit with your Marines, if you want an additional +1 to hit with your Zealots in close combat, you do need to pay some campaign points in order to do that. And again, that doesn't affect all of your Marines or all of your Zealots. It's tied to one specific unit when you go to deployment. When you're building out your list, you decide which unit upgrades are being equipped to which units. These are also permanent, right? They'll retain these from one mission to the next. So it's not like you pay for them for one mission and then those campaign points are spent and the upgrade disappears after the end of that mission. They'll stay with that unit over and across the game. So that way, eventually you'll have really, really high-end units and maybe some that you were just like, well, this unit wasn't that important, so they didn't get anything for the purpose of it, right? And then, we give a quick example of kind of what this can look like, right? And then the next category is added supply. So if you want to start the game with additional supply points, you can pay a campaign point to give yourself 1 extra supply point, right? And then suddenly, while your opponent's working with more units in reserve, you might start with more of your units actually on the board, which is kind of nice, right? And then the final thing you can purchase are rerolls. So you can spend 1 campaign point to add 1 reroll to your army roster. And this makes it so that when you perform a roll during a mission that has not already been rerolled. So again, we're following the general concept of you cannot reroll a reroll, okay? Then you can declare that you're spending 1 of your rerolls on your army roster, you deduct it, and then you reroll the dice in the roll as desired, okay? And it says these may be used on any dice you roll during the game as long as you're the player rolling the dice, even if the dice involves allied or neutral characters, and the dice has not already been rerolled, then you can reroll it, okay? And so in this sense, and as a quick note on this one, the rerolls are spent, right? They are lost. So once you use a reroll, you've lost it. The campaign point is gone. You won't have that set number of rerolls for every single match. So make sure that you're only using them on ones that are really going to matter. And then the final appendix is just printout copies of all of the upgrade cards, as well as near the bottom, we also provide you with printouts of the faction cards that are available, as well as some kind of baseline things in case you wanted to create your own. You can print off a copy of this one and then, write in whatever it is you want, and you're good to go. So hopefully really straightforward. If you have thoughts or for changes on it, so you can reach us over here at zurncentral.com/contact. Just fill out the form and it will shoot me an email, and then from there we'll be able to dialogue about potential changes. On the whole, I hope that this is useful for you. Again, the plan is to do a lot of different campaigns. In fact, just jumping back over to the site, you can see already kind of some of the stuff that we already have in the hopper right now. Kairos is ready. Project Chimera is the one we're currently working on. I'm doing some final work on some of the mission design on those ones, but a lot of the core base elements of it are already finished, including a bunch of the dialogue, which typically tends to take some of the longest amount of time. Where basically it's a Zerg brood that's been sent to investigate a really strange project that the Terrans are working on. This one does have kind of a timing set to it. So this is part of Kerrigan's swarm, where you're one of the brood mothers being sent off in order to investigate this thing and shut down what the Terrans are currently working on, because it's one of the ways the Terrans are looking to turn the tide against Kerrigan's swarm shortly after the Brood War. We also have a third one. That one, of course, is Zerg coded. So, the primary protagonist, it's told from the perspective of the Zerg. So, you may be sympathetic to the Terrans, but the Zerg are presented as the protagonists in that one. And then for Outpost Kaldir, this is a Protoss minded and Protoss oriented campaign, which is really the establishment of the outpost that the Protoss established on Kaldir for research on the uh, Urzodons that we see in Heart of the Swarms. I mean, the Kaldir arc is just one of my favorite arcs from Heart of the Swarm, and so you're the one that's establishing it, and then of course you discover that there is a Zerg colony led by oh, it's not Zagara, it's not Niadra, it's the other one that we don't know, that we don't see very often. But the result is that again, you're kind of leading that expedition and setting everything up and building up the psi, amplifiers to communicate with Shakuras, etc., etc. So kind of fun. Those will be the first three that will be coming out. These are all designed to be between 800 and 1200 points. So you can kind of play it with everything that's basically right out of the box. With the Protoss, because you cap out a little bit below 1200 points, you might need to buy one expansion box, but you can get that, which is great. And then the next two that are coming, I think is going to be kind of fun. The plan is to turn the Liberation of Kairos, the Argus Company arc, into a trilogy. So there will be future ones tied to Liberation of Kairos, which also means that some heroes are going to start disappearing as they start dying. So depending on how many heroes you end up losing, at certain times you may end up not having access to them later on. But the plan is also a Fall of Unshel Nalara, which is a powerful Protoss city that faces a prophecy of impending doom, that they will someday fall. But of course, the leadership believes that there's no way this can happen to such a powerful and well-defended city such as us. So it is Protoss coded. The Protoss are the protagonists, but it's kind of more of a tragedy, which is kind of fun and exciting. So see how that works out, or maybe you do defend it. Who can say? And then finally, the other one that's currently in the hopper that we're very excited about is called Primal Rising, which follows a pack of primal Zerg that are visited by a new species on their planet of Xeris, which I will not tell you what that species is. But just suffice it to say, at least for now, kind of a unique way of doing it because there's a whole new essence capturing style of upgrade advancement that we're including in that one. Because of course, as we know on Xeris, since they're not a swarm, right? They're the OG Zerg. They have the ability, as we see in some of the cutscenes, to be able to amalgamate the essence of others and take some of their traits and abilities into themselves when they slay something. And so the Primal Rising campaign kind of revolves heavily around that, where it's a Zerg-based campaign, but it's also different because by the end of the campaign, some of your Zerg units may be radically different, right? You might have Zerglings that actually have ranged attacks. You might have Roaches that are actually really good in close combat. You can have always hidden Hydralisks, right? Things like this are kind of the cloaked Hydralisks basically. So there's different stuff that can happen. It just all depends on what kinds of creatures you decide to go after, what threats you decide to remove, and whether you're able to collect their essence in a timely manner. So hopefully should be interesting. Please do let us know if you have any thoughts on all of this. I hope that this will be a very exciting way for you to jump into the Kapulu sector. If you have thoughts, of course, on it, zurncentral.com/contact. You can find that over on the page as well. We look forward to hearing your thoughts, and we will see you next time.